Sibi Melvin, our head systems reform, to make her presentation on systemic engagement as an effective tool for social transformation. Sibi Melvin. Hello?
Hello.
Yeah, Mr. Sibi Melvin.
Yeah, good evening, everyone. I would like to thank Red Rope organization, Chrysolite, her team. I want to thank Andhra Pradesh Mahila Commission. I want to thank Hyderabad University for organizing this. And I also want to thank the fellow panelists. And most importantly, I want to thank the over 129 participants who have logged in from different places. Thank you so much for organizing this and giving me this opportunity. I'd just like to get started. Can I have access to present my PPT?
Chrysolite. Hello. 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 Ajay? Ajay? Professor Ajay?
Yes, yes.
Yeah, is it there? That facility is there?
Yeah,
Can you check now?
I think they are arranging. Are you able to do it, Chris?
Chris, Sibi?
Can you check, Sibi?
Sibi, is it possible to go without...
Yeah, I just got access. Thank you
yeah,
so much.
because the time... Okay, go ahead. 10 minutes only we are left with time.
Yeah.
Carry on, carry on. Carry on.
Sibi, if you can press F5.
Yeah, so I have structured my talk into three parts. First is definition of the topic itself. And then I'll talk about the organization that I represent. And finally, what do we as an organization do on this topic? That's how I have structured my talk. Why is that I should define the topic? Is it not self-explanatory? Sometimes the topic is confused with systematic engagement, structured engagement. So I'll just get started with what its origins are. Systemic engagement has its origins from systems thinking, which was put forward by a famous American professor and organizational learning expert, Peter Sang. And personally, I got introduced to this topic some 10 years back when I was working with HCL Technologies in the quality department by then Vice President Dr. S.K. Pillai, who was a former ISRO scientist. So systems thinking is something that corporates use, something that organizations like ISRO use, and it views the system in a broader perspective. It views the system as a whole. It doesn't narrow down its focus, and it also looks at relationship between the interconnectedness between the various system parts, which helps in better decision making. And one of the beauty of the systems thinking and systemic engagement is, it explains the possibility of how small events, which I term as catalytic events, which can be small in size, small in terms of a kind of a low-hanging fruit, but its ability to impact in a big way. So systems thinking gives that possibility. And finally, it promotes a seamless communication across the organization, breaking organizational silos. On right, you see Peter Senge's photograph and his quote. He's the author of this book, The Fifth Discipline. As my talk is not about systems thinking or systemic engagement, I'm not going to dwell much on this. If any of you are interested to know more about it, you can do a Google search, and there's a wonderful video by Peter Sang himself, Systems Thinking for a Better World. You can watch that. And who am I and who are we? I work with International Justice Mission. International Justice Mission is a human rights organization working on the issue of violence against the poor. If you look at my screen that's projected on screen, IJM works in as many as 14 countries in as many as 25 plus locations on varied issues, which comes under the category of violence against the poor. In India, we work on the twin issues of bonded labor and human trafficking. As you can see on the screen, IJM's theory of change is the end of poverty requires end of violence. End of violence requires the end of impunity, and ending impunity is achieved through an active public justice system that enforces law. This is our organization's theory of change with which we function. I'll give you a quick example. This theory of change might look like a magic bullet. Oh, if we end violence, will it end poverty? So I just want to clarify the questions around that. It's not a magic bullet, but let me give this illustration, this example about a specific district and village in North India where kids enrollment in school was dropping, especially the girl children enrollment was dropping drastically. And when probed for reasons, it was found that the access to the school was not safe. The girl children get molested and raped, they get kidnapped. So to protect the children from, especially the girl children, from this kind of situation, the parents were taking the girls out of school. So in this example, you can well see that even if there are schools are required, teachers are required, there's a need for good infrastructure, there's a good need for women empowerment. But even if all those are done, but if violence is not stopped, violence against these vulnerable communities such as girl children are not stopped, all the gains that we achieve through all the other development programs will be lost. The gains cannot be sustained. So if we have to sustain the gains, if we have to amplify our gains, the core issue that must be addressed is violence against the poor. And the way we address it is not creating a counter group, but by empowering the public justice system to protect the poor from the violence. That brings me to the end of second part, and I'm going to get into the third part, which is where I'm going to speak about how IJM as an organization applies the systemic engagement on the issues of bonded labor and human trafficking. Broadly, IJM's approach can be classified as two. One we call as casework approach, and the other on the lines of systems thinking, the system reform approach. In environments where governments, where stakeholders do not take cognizance of the existence of crime, do not take action to address that crime, IJM goes for a casework approach. For example, there is a specific North Indian state which is very rich. The people of this state are in very influential position both inside and outside the country. But when it comes to addressing the issue of bonded labor in the state is very hesitant for various reasons. One of that reason, which very often we see across various stakeholders, is the shame around acceptance of crime. What would the government think if my subdivision has acknowledged existence of bonded labor? What would the chief minister think, or what would the chief secretary think if I acknowledge the existence of bonded labor in my district? So that's only one reason, but there are various other reasons for which systems don't agree. The government's stakeholders don't agree on the cognizance of existence of crime. So in such a scenario, we go for the casework approach. We take individual cases and present before the authorities. We identify, present before the authorities for rescue, work along with the authorities for rehabilitation, and work with the police and public prosecutors for prosecution. So here again, it's a well-rounded approach, both focusing on the victims as well as the perpetrators and as well as on the government. Once we do enough of cases through this casework approach, IJM in the last 15-18 years has done over 18,000 victim rescues in the country. So once there is good number of cases that we have done in a particular geography, we switch to the system reform approach, because going for picking up this one starfish and throwing into the sea, that kind of approach cannot solve this big problem, because the problem is big. ILO quotes crores of people in being in slavery. Siddharth Kara again quotes a huge number. So the problem is huge, and an individual case-based advocacy is will not be sufficient. That's where we go for the system reform approach. So what happens here? In fact, Chris Willett had asked, she knows about our work, she had asked to talk, especially what I'm going to speak from now on, but for the purpose of context setting, I have to cover starting from Peter Senge. So there are 4 subsystems that we address under the system reform approach. Let me start with an illustration. If I have to go from Delhi, where I'm based out of, to Agra, which is around 200 kilometers away, what would I need? I would definitely need a good road, a good physical infrastructure that would help me drive there. And what else would I need? I should have the driving skill, or I or someone, one of my friend, someone known to me should have that skill. And then if it is for some official engagement, if my boss is going to expect that I reach, it's going to be 5 here, if she is going to expect me there by 7:30, that is also going to influence me in moving towards Agra and reaching there on time. So there are certain things that we see in this illustration. There is need for a physical infrastructure such as road, and then there is the need for capacity, the driving ability, and then there is somebody holding me accountable, my boss, or probably a district magistrate expecting me to meet me in Agra at 7 o'clock. So that's the accountability factor. So those are the different subsystems that form the system reform system. And of course, there is also public demand which comes along, but I'm not going to cover that in my presentation, mainly because that's a well-known issue, and there are many organizations working on it. So quickly, I'll go into talking about each of these 3 big subsystems and what we as an organization has as our learning. So getting onto the policy infrastructure subsystem, I have presented 2 examples. On your right, you see a standard operating procedure issued by Ministry of Labor and Employment. Why is this important? Because there are willing officials, there are very proactive officials. I saw the co-panelist Sumati ma'am speaking in another forum earlier in the day. I have interacted with her Madam Swati Lakra. I have interacted with Tarun Joshi. They're all wonderful officers, but if the policy infrastructure is not allowing officials to do justice, then there is a hit on the justice delivery. So on the standard operating procedure was issued by Ministry of Labor when it was taken to the notice about varied understanding about how a bonded labor rescue should happen prevailing in different parts of the country. The ministry was considerate enough to allow even our organization to play a role in working along with them. On the left, you see there is a circular from Director General of Police Tamil Nadu. This came about in a situation where there was a series of acquittals for want of certain documents in the charge sheet, in the police final report. So when this was noted by the court and a direction was issued to the police, our organization again had this opportunity to work along with the police establishment in Tamil Nadu to address this gap. And what I hear from my colleagues in Tamil Nadu, I think Alice is also present here, there is a significant reduction in such kind of acquittals after this, this infrastructure gap was addressed. So subsequent, let me also share
Mr. Sibi Melvin, please brief, and because we are with the paucity of time, kindly keep the time in mind, please. I'm sorry to.
How much more time do I have, sir?
Take 5 more minutes, please.
Yeah, I'll wind up before that. Don't worry. Yeah.
Please, thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah. In the earlier question and answer session, there was a question about convergence, about the rehabilitation. Interestingly, for labor trafficking, bonded labor, there is a central sector scheme, and this scheme was revamped in 2016, bringing about a good compensation. However, there was a gap again in that policy, which was linking disbursement of compensation to conviction. Organization like us and many other organizations who are participating here today came together and presented before the Ministry of Labor and Employment on this gap. And what you see on your right is this, the ministry issued a clarification. So that's again an example of, civil society and the government collaborating to address a policy gap. This is a very recent one. It came on 6th July 2020 notification. Though IJM did not have a direct role to play in collaborating for this, not always it's civil society organizations that demand and government deliver, and there are also good bureaucrats who evolve policies like this. This notification talks about 3 important things: 100 crore funds. Without money, sometimes policies cannot be implemented, procedures cannot be followed. So this is a very, very important notification. The government setting aside 100 crore funds from Nirbhaya Fund for setting up and strengthening AHTUs across the country. And this also has an important notification about AHT in all the districts. As you would be aware, when AHTUs came into existence under the leadership of Dr. PM Nair, it was for certain districts. Now it has been made into something which is applicable for across the country. And the third component is, the NHA notification is a form of notification taking cognizance of labor trafficking. Usually, sex trafficking, because of the media coverage and the horror involved in it, gets the attention of the government establishment, and it's very, very interesting. This notification gives its labor trafficking its due significance. Moving into the second, the subsystem in the country, there is a good training infrastructure available. There are national level training academies like the Lal Bahadur Shastri National Academy of Administration, Sardar Vallabhbhai Patel National Police Academy, National Judicial Academy, National Institute of Rural Development, and also a lot of state academies, to train different kinds of officials. One of the things that has to be seen is what gets trained there. How does the subject of trafficking, bonded labor come in the priority of the training? And also, how is training institutionalized in these institutes? Recently, VV Giri is institutionalizing VV Giri Labor Institute is institutionalizing trainings on bonded labor. Our colleagues in Chennai has good success with Anna Institute of Management, which has taken up institutionalizing trainings on bonded labor in a big way. And also not just, the entry level training, but how does officials get ongoing trainings, and how do some of the digital platforms be used? So those are some of the things that we can address under this subsystem. So here are some photos from our trainings in different parts of the country, training to AHT officials in Rajasthan, training for Telangana state police officials, Udaipur in Rajasthan. There's training for Wayanad district officials. So yeah, trainings play a very critical role in system reform. And then the accountability subsystem. The accountability subsystem can be looked, all these subsystems can be looked in various ways. This is one way in which, based on our years of experience, we are looking at it. Of course, there can be, different ways and different interpretation. But here, let me present two key components. One is the mechanism, and another is institutes. A simple review can be a good accountability mechanism. Someone calling and asking what's happening on the trafficking issues. What's the status of cases? How are cases progressing on in the court? A committee, existing for checking this. That can be a good mechanism. Mandatory reports like NHRC report. There should be a 6-monthly report to NHRC on bonded labor performance from the states. Whether the Human Rights Commission goes through those reports or not, but just such a thing of a mandatory reporting existing as a good accountability mechanism. And then, as you all know, there are a good number of accountability institutes that's available. Human Rights Commission, Women's Commission, State Commission for Commission for Protection of Child Rights. So all these institutes can play a very active role in making the public justice system deliver justice for the poor. Let me just, this is my last slide. Let me just explain those 4 photographs. What you see on the left top is the State Women Commission in Tamil Nadu organizing a consultation on women in bonded labor system. That is very much required. Even if we take Telangana, just in and around Hyderabad, there are hundreds and thousands of bricklins. And what's the status of women there? How are the women's issues being addressed there? How is a relief possible for them under either Bonded Labor Abolition Act or Immoral Trafficking Prevention Act? It was a good thing that Kannaki Bakinathan, I think the Women's Commission chairperson took this initiative, and then it has started shaking things. And immediately below that, you see a very recent notification from UP Chief Secretary. So he had conducted a review, and that's making some wonders in terms of prosecution. And on in the middle bottom, you see a detail of a rescue. This is a wonderful example for State Commission for Protection of Child Rights, Telangana, directing the district administration to look, because of COVID duties, district administration was completely busy, and the Child Rights Commission took it upon themselves to influence the actions of the district magistrate, and these 5 kids were rescued in the middle of COVID-19. And again, on the right, you see Women's Commission organizing an open hearing on a scheme called Sumangali scheme in Tamil Nadu, which is a very a scheme that holds women in bonded labor condition. So these are examples in which how these accountability mechanisms, institutions can hold the system accountable. So here I end. Through policy infrastructure, through good training approaches, and then strengthening the accountability institutes, there is a great opportunity to make the public justice system deliver justice for poor on a large scale. Thank you so much for this opportunity.
Thank you, Mr. Sibi Melvin, for an insightful presentation, taking the whole system into consideration and focusing on contradictions between policy and infrastructure and its executive arms. Also, it sounds like a good governance against bonded labor and human trafficking. Anyway, we shall get back to you with questions. Thank you so much for this thing, for your presentation.
Thank you.